Welcome back to the Generational Rundown. And today we have a wonderful guest joining us, Angela Andrieux, who's an expert photographer who has an incredible app that she uses, wonderful years of experience. We want to get to know her and find out how she got into this business and a little bit about you, because I'm just learning. I read a little bit, but would love to tell the viewers how you came about this and what your background is.
Yeah, sure. So thank you for having me. Like you said, my name is Angela Andrew. I'm a fine art photographer and have been doing photography and photography coaching for many years. I also work full-time for a company called Mylio. We produce a software called Mylio Photos, and it is a digital asset manager that helps you organize your lifetime of memories. What makes it really unique is it focuses on getting all of your stuff into one library that you control. It's very privacy based. Using the cloud is optional, and there is technology that lets you access your library from all of your devices, and you can use the cloud or not. You don't have to use the cloud, and the peer-to-peer connection still works, which is really fabulous. Um, and it's got so many different tools to help you save those important memories. Everything from gathering your analog photos, getting those digitized and organized, to wrangling all of our digital images that we have today that we're all capturing on our cell phones and various devices that we have stored in all sorts of different places, getting that all into one library, getting it so you can enjoy it and share it and find what you want when you want it. So that's in a nutshell.
I think that's one of the biggest things, Mom, you say you suffer with is like you have thousands of photos on your iMac from the 2000s on, and you try to organize them into albums, and it is such a hassle always.
I would say, Angela, that's one of my biggest stressors. Like, we have to clean our basement out. And one of my big things is I got to go through all the photos, the duplicates that are photos from years ago that are in albums. What I started doing, what Alexander's talking about, is I am not technology savvy at all. And basically what happened was I started the Mac computer years ago, the Apple, photo album, and started these incredible, downloads on my iPhone going into my computer and making wonderful albums. Basically, my big thing is I was so proud of myself, Angela. Years ago, I started making albums like through the years. I have 3 kids, and we had a dog that just recently passed. So I have tons of memories, and I would make the albums. That's the one thing I learned at Apple, like how to make the albums. Well, during COVID, I got a little bit negligent. And so I am very behind in the last 4 years. I have all these photos on my iPhone, but I haven't made the albums yet. And so I'm having anxiety about that because I want to get that done. But before I do that, I have to get rid of photos on my iPhone because I don't want to just import thousands of photos. I want to get rid of some of the photos on my iPhone, then download, and then I do events, what's called events. But this is going to be a huge undertaking for me. I don't know, like, if you've heard that before from other people, but so like, I was so proud of myself. I had like the photo albums on the computer, and now I'm like behind by 4 years, 3 or 4 years. So I need to go back and make these. I don't want them just hundreds of photos on my phone without having albums on my computer. Then
Yes, it's a very common problem, and it's so easy to get behind because we're creating so much content every single day. The one thing I tell people is to try to take it in little chunks, because when you think of it as I have thousands of images to deal with, it's really overwhelming. And when we're overwhelmed, we just don't start. I don't know
that's
about you. I tend to shut down when I get
Yes,
overwhelmed.
yes.
But if I say, you know what, I'm going to deal with, this 10 days worth of photos, or I'm going to, we have this one vacation that we did. Let me just deal with the photos from this trip
okay.
and start kind of chipping away at it. And if you need to, if you're the kind of person who likes to have something to check off a list, make yourself a list of, every week I want to get done this much, or every month, this is my goal. And you kind of mark off towards that. And before long, you'll get it done. But it just takes taking it in those little tiny baby steps, because if you try to tackle it all at once, it's just, you shut down.
And then it's like 4 years later, like I'm
Yeah.
looking back and I'm like, I imported these photos. Like, I was so proud of myself. I learned it. Now I'm not sure if I remember how to do it. I got to go back, import, then go through the event. And like you said, maybe just chip away at one event. So like 3 years ago, maybe there was an event 3 years ago that was the last thing I imported. go to the next event and just do that. Create the event and every day do, because you're right. It's so overwhelming that's why I'm 4 years later behind into it. As
So when
well
you,
as, yeah, I'm sorry, go ahead.
oh no, I was gonna say, when you're making your albums, what are you using to make your albums?
So I think it was like iPhotos, Apple,
Oh,
there was
okay.
events, and
Gotcha.
but I never did really a good job doing photos on my iPhone. So I have a couple of events on my iPhone that I made into albums, but I kind of slacked off since I never finished the downloading on the computer. I didn't really want to make it an album on my phone yet. So I need to go back, import, but the problem is that it's a whole to do that I don't even know if I remember step by step how I
Well,
did it.
Angela, would you say your app is user friendly? Like the digital creation of how we use this, I feel like it might be easier to just import it into the app. And then from there, does it make albums for you? Is it more user friendly? Can you talk a little bit about that process?
Yeah, absolutely. So one thing that I'm hearing from you, so you've already made these events, these albums in Apple Photos. So one thing that might be a barrier here is those are not going to transfer out to another application. What the way Apple does is it's a proprietary system, and those types of things are saved only in Apple Photos. So
Okay.
what you could do with our software is you could get all your pictures from your phone, from your Apple Photos on your computer, from any external hard drives you have. You could even download your stuff from social media. You bring it all into the Mylio Photos library. So you get everything into one place and then you start organizing from there. My hesitation though is that I don't want you to lose the organization you've already done. It'll always still be there in Apple Photos,
Right.
but it doesn't port anywhere else, unfortunately.
Okay.
What is
That's
the
a
storage for the Mylio?
So Mylio uses your own storage, so it's unlimited. There's no cap on our end. So if you run out of hard drive space, you buy another external hard drive.
That's
wow.
great. See, that's really nice because I sometimes have to transfer now to Google Photos and I pay like $1 for storage or something because my Apple Photos runs out. So that's
Right.
really great that you have an app that literally will just store it working off your data. You don't have to pay extra to get that storage.
Exactly. And that's one of the things I love about Mylio Photos is you're in control of your own stuff. You can use the cloud, you can pay extra to have those cloud services and that if you like. But a lot of us, we end up with all of these different services that we're paying for all these different subscriptions. This kind of narrows it down to one because Mylio is a subscription service if you want your devices to talk to each other. But it having to add on that cloud service, that's something optional. You can have everything stored locally if you want and just have multiple hard drives.
And you know what I've noticed too? My photos through Apple on my computer have not updated at all. Like, I don't know if there's a connection issue, but I look back and it stopped in like 2022 somewhere, and I see random screenshots here and there saved. So, are you saying Mylio can have a desktop version and an iPhone version, and it's like synced up?
Yes, and it's so much faster than having Apple Photo Sync. So I'm a big Apple fangirl and I've used Apple products all my life. And when I take pictures on my iPhone, it takes forever for them to make it onto my Mac. And I pay Apple extra for additional storage too. So you'd think that those things would be much faster. But when I put it into Mylio, so I'll open up Mylio on my phone, it immediately pulls in the pictures off my camera roll. And then very, very quickly, those pictures are on my desktop and I can browse them there as well.
Wow.
So much
Wow.
faster than doing it through Apple.
How
That's
much how much is this app? Is it an expensive
It's not,
undertaking?
no, it's not very expensive. So it's we're just going through a price change here with I'm trying to think of the exact date of when that's happening. It's this month and very soon in the very near future, it's going up to I think $120 a year. So
Okay.
right now, I believe it is still $99 a year. Very, very shortly, it'll be $120 a year, or I think $12.99 a month.
Okay.
That's great. I mean, that's great for having the type of complex technology that this app offers. I feel like you're getting such a steal with
It
that.
is. It's an amazing value. And the cool thing is not only are you not limited on the number of devices you can bring into it, or rather the number of how many pictures you can store, you're also not limited by the number of devices you can connect. So if you have a phone, a computer, an iPad, maybe another computer, or your spouse's computer, you can all be on the same account for no additional charge. It's the same price.
Oh my gosh, that's great. So are you saying if I wanted to upload my photos and I could do them on all those devices, and also if someone else wanted to hop on and upload their photos, they could use those devices too?
Potentially. Now they would have access to your entire library. There are
Mhm.
some controls on that, but I mean, if you want to share a library with somebody, we say usually with a family member or a trusted collaborator, because people do this for specific projects. Like if you're working on a family history project, bringing in all those old pictures, everybody's working on face tagging and adding their little bits of the story to that information. You might want to have people who can work on that same library. So you would share a library at that point. So it
I
works
was
really
gonna
well
ask
inside of a household or for a specific project. So that definitely can work, but there's no additional charge for the amount of devices. So, if you and your mom wanted to share an account, you totally could, but you would have access to, pretty much each other's stuff.
right. That makes sense. That's so cool though. What a great
And
concept.
I had a question about, my husband actually had a question about the VH, I think he said the VH15 or whatever, the VH tapes. Like, are they convertible with this? Like, he wanted to know about the VH tapes. That was one of his questions he wanted me to ask you. And how to preserve photos in case of a flood. I mean, this is like, this photo thing is just such an important thing in our life. And yet it's a hassle, like, right? It's like you want
It's
memories, you want, but it's also could be a curse and a blessing. So like I'm married 31 years, and we have photos on VHS. We have the big, what was it? The camcorders or whatever.
Mhm.
So he wants to know about all that. Like,
So
uh, yeah.
Mylio can store and help you organize digital video files. As far as converting them from your VHS or from other formats that you might have, what I would suggest is find a local company that does those conversions to digital for you.
Okay.
There's also places that you can ship off your stuff to. That's when my grandmother passed several years ago. She had all of her, 8 millimeters and all these really old videos. My dad had them all digitized. So we boxed them up and we sent them off to the service, and they sent us back a thumb drive with all of our videos digitized. Those
Okay.
digital files now live in my Mylio Photos library, and they get
Oh,
backed up to all my different devices, and I can access those home movies from my phone or from my tablet. And it's
that's so
amazing.
cool.
That's amazing. Yeah, I wasn't even thinking videos, but you're so right. Now you have the video footage, like you said, Mom, the camcorders, graduations, births. If you digitize that, you could have that on the app. That's incredible.
Yes.
It's such a stressor. It sounds like so ridiculous. It's such a stressor in my life. It's funny. Wait, I just had a thought. I was going to ask you. You were talking about, oh, I know what I was going to say. Related to the iPhone, right? So again, very basic question. I know like when you have photos on your phone, you have to have them, if you get rid of them from your album. I have some albums, okay?
Mhm.
If I want to get rid of them in recents, then you have to, like, you can't get rid of them in recents and then keep them in album. But you can, I think, like, you can keep them in album, but
Yes. So what
you
you're
get rid
saying
of your
is that you
album.
can delete a photo from an album, but if you choose to delete the photo from your camera roll, it will leave the album.
And
Correct.
that's a problem for me because, for example, one of my things is my dog just died. We just lost our dog a week ago. We're very upset. We had all these photos. She's sending me Alexander photos that she wants me to post on Facebook. I have old photos in my camera roll. And so I have these now recent photos that she sent me from years ago.
Mhm.
And they're the last thing that's on my phone, as if it happened yesterday, these photos. These photos
Right.
are from years ago. But the problem is, I don't have them in my albums. I can't just now put them in my album and take them off my recents.
Mhm.
So they're on
Right.
my recents. Well,
So
that's not the same with Milo, right? Mylio, you can keep it separate. Like, in other words, I don't want to see these photos of my dog that are from years ago as my last recent photo, like it happened last week.
So what's happening there is those pictures, however they were sent to you, the metadata, the information that's written to each file about it, some of that information got lost. And one of those pieces of information was the date that was captured. So things in your camera roll are going to show up based on when they were captured. And sometimes if that information is lost, it can be the date that file was created or maybe shared with you, which is why it's showing up recently. Now in Mylio Photos, you can absolutely correct that date. You can say, okay, maybe I don't even know what date that was, but that was in, early 2012s. And you
Right.
can go ahead and put that into 2012, and it's going to jump it back to that part. As you're scrolling and it'll actually show up in that part of your library.
I
That's,
love that. I
that's,
have this
that's,
problem too, Mom. Now that you mention that, sometimes my data does store and I'll look for the photo and I'll be like, oh my gosh, it went all the way back to 2019. But most of the time it ends up in recents and that does irk me too. I'm like, I
well,
didn't.
the reason it's recent, Elsa, because you sent me it to post and I
Right,
wanted those photos
right.
and I wanted to put them in my camera roll. And the way I did it, it looks like it was like we just took a picture of him last week and we're like, no, I want to put that back in camera roll. I don't want to see it after something that just happened last week because I already have a separate photos camera roll for him under JoJo. You know what I mean? So it's really, really, to me, it makes more sense to do a Myleo, your thing, because you can keep that separate and just look at that. You don't have to
Yeah.
have all these random. I have so many photos on my phone. That's the other thing. I need to go through the photos on my phone. I've got duplicates of so many photos that I haven't, gotten rid of. So
And
that's
Miley's got some great tools for that too. It's got the first one, it has a deduplication tool. So if there's an exact duplicate, so maybe um, the easiest way to explain this is if you maybe did a backup at some point and those pictures got back into your camera roll and you now have two of the exact same photo, Miley will find those and help you go through and delete them.
oh my
It also
God.
has what we call a declutter tool, which will group together those burst mode photos. So if you're taking pictures and you hit that button to where it captures, 15 images in a row and they're all very, very similar, but maybe only one or two of those is really worth saving because everyone has their eyes open, or maybe there's that gesture that you wanted to capture. You can save those one or two and you can delete the rest. So it helps you clean those things up. There's also little quick tools to find all your screenshots. So you can look through those. If it's something you need to keep it. If not, you can delete them all. You can also kind of go through your stuff and you can find those pictures where maybe you took a picture of where you parked in the parking garage. Or one of the things I do often is if I'm out shopping and I see something that I think might make a good gift for somebody, I'll take a picture of it. And like if it's something I'm thinking of for my dad, I'll send that picture to my mom. Dad, would dad like this? But then that picture's on my camera roll and I find it 5 years later. I was like, why did I take a picture of this tool? Oh yeah, that's why. And it's like, then I can delete it. So you can kind of find those things and clean them up. And Miley can definitely help with a lot of that.
I would love that. The finding the random screenshots, like you just said, that's what stops you from going back and deleting everything because I'm like, I can't look anymore. There's too much. It's too much.
Yeah.
I was gonna say too, I was thinking, what about any editing features? Are there, if you want to brighten up a photo, anything like that?
Absolutely. So it's got some great essential editing tools. So it'll edit raw photos, it'll edit your JPEGs. There's a few little auto functions. So if you just want to do a quick brighten of it, a couple of the tools are really geared towards historical photos. So it'll correct colors. So if you're scanning an old picture, some of them have that like magenta tone to them. It'll correct that. And you can brighten, darken, sharpen, all of those basic things that, most photo editors have. It also works really well with just about any other photo editor out there. So if somebody is really into creative photo editing, you can open in Photoshop or any other tool that you want to use. Or if you're on your phone or your tablet, it can actually fetch that full resolution file and you can open it in whatever editor you want to use on your phone.
That's great.
And how long has it been around? How long has this app been around?
So Miley has been around for well over 10 years, but we only started heavily marketing it in the last few. So the company was started by the former CTO of Microsoft. And this is his passion project. This is the product that he felt the market needed and what he wanted to manage his own memories. So he hired a bunch of really, really smart people to build this. And it's an engineer hiring a bunch of engineers. So they built a pretty technical, fabulous, powerful product. But it was a little bit hard for the masses to understand. So engineers got it right away, but the technical level of it was a bit strong. So in the last few years, we've brought in some more team members that have fine-tuned it to make it easier for people to use.
Yeah.
We've added a few new features that really make the larger, wider public much happier, makes it much easier to use. So now it's a product that we're out there marketing, we're getting it out there in front of people, and people are loving it.
That's great.
Incredible. You know what? This is one of those apps where you hear, oh my gosh, it's been around for all these years and now it's going to have a boom. So we better get on this and our listeners better get on this before that 120, chucks it up because this is
I
an
know.
app.
And are there tutorials? Do you work with people? Like, how did you get into this? And is this something that you do exclusively? You're also a photographer as well. So
I am. Yeah, I've got my own little side gig. I'm a photographer, but my day job is working for Milio, and my title is product evangelist. Basically, what that means is I help our customers be successful, and I teach this product day in and day out. I wrote our product manual, so I write the product documentation. I do tutorial videos. I do tutorial live streams multiple times a week for the company and our community. We've got an amazing support team. Education is very prevalent. We've got some courses that are free. We have a lot of training that's free. Right now, if somebody signs up with a new subscription, they get a 30-minute setup call with one of our experts. You also get access to a program called Ready, Set, Go, which has live daily stuff that you can attend if you like, where they're self-paced. What else do we have? We've got lots of like video and written tutorials. We've got tons of stuff. We're there to make it as easy as possible for people because we know it is a very powerful and to some could seem very complex. We want to make sure it's as accessible as possible. And if you come to our community, you're looking for help, chances are you're going to find me and you're going to be talking to me.
I love that. This is a community. All the things this is offering, I've never heard of an app offering these one-on-one, this personal connection, having someone guide you. You get a free 30-minute setup. I mean, that would be huge for you, Mom. Every time we're on the phone with Apple and you need to get an appointment, it's not
Oh
that.
my God. Well, it's like the olden days when I used to do Apple and we used to have like one-on-one classes. They don't even do that anymore. I kind of shied away from the group classes. I liked the one-on-one feel, like the tutoring and really learning, even before this, when I had the really old dinosaur computer and trying to organize. And I remember years and years when you guys were really little getting tutored on the computer of how to, like, it just, technology overwhelms me. And really the only thing I would say other than email, I like to use my computer for is the photos. I want to do the photos. I want to, and I'm
And
very
that app can transfer to your computer, which I think is cool because like I think Angela said, chip away, right? So if you have an event and we just had a party together and the photos are on your phone, go home right away and upload it from this Mylio to that Mylio and it's there. I mean, that's
actually, you don't even have to take any action. All you have to do is open up Mylio, and as long as the other device that has it is open and running, it takes care of it for you. And the other thing that's really cool is we have inside of Mylio what's called the life calendar. And so based on those dates that are already in your pictures, it groups everything by date. So regardless of, so if you share some pictures of your mom, she shares them to her camera roll, those all end up in one place. Those are all going to end up on her calendar or your calendar on that date without even having to create a specific event. You can absolutely do that, but it's already there on that date. So you just go to that date and there's all of the pictures. So it does a lot of that for you. And then you're also saying that technology is a bit sometimes overwhelming for you. We also have a service that we call concierge. So we can assign you to someone who's a professional photo organizer to work with you and get your stuff organized. So that's an add-on subscription that you can get, but it's fabulous. And these people who do this job, they're amazing.
I love that. I mean, look, people have closet organizers. They have, why not a photo organizer? I love that.
I know, that's what I really need, a photo organizer.
You need that. I want to know the top 3 things you think people can take away. Like when they get the subscription, what are the 3 features that you're like, okay, this is what you have to look for when you're first going in the app?
Okay, so when you're first going in the app, you've brought in a few pictures, check out the face tagging. That's probably one of the most fulfilling things to do is it goes through your pictures, it finds recognizable faces, and then you can tag who's in the pictures. And the AI becomes smarter the more that you do it, and it will start automatically grouping together the pictures that it thinks are a certain person, and then you can confirm or deny. So doing the face tagging is a lot of fun. And our batch face tagging tool, once you get a few people named, it's almost like a game. You want to get in there and you want to get that untagged amount to 0. So every time you're adding in new pictures, like, oh no, that number went up. And you go in there and you start tagging. So that's a lot of fun. People seem to really enjoy that. The bonus on the end of that is when you have a birthday or an anniversary or something like that, you can immediately go to that collection for that person's photos and see all of the pictures you have of that person, which is fantastic. So that's probably one of the first things. The second thing I would say is start to consider how you want to protect your library. So I like to recommend a 3-2-1 backup scenario. So whether you're using Mylio or not, 3-2-1 backup is having at least 3 copies of your data on at least 2 different types of media with one of them offsite. So that means you'll have like your working copy. That could be what's on your computer or on your main hard drive that you have that you store things. Your second copy would be maybe a second external drive that you have that duplicated to. So that way, if your first hard drive crashes or your computer crashes, you have another copy. You can easily get that connected to a new machine, get up and running, everything is safe. That offsite copy is your disaster recovery. So you were asking about what happens in a flood or something like that. You know, there's already so many things. If there's a natural disaster or something happening that you want to grab and get out of the house, it used to be that my hard drives were on that list. Not anymore, because I back up to the cloud. Now, the cloud is a wonderful thing, but it is only one location. So don't trust your entire library to only be on the cloud, but it is a wonderful tool. So having that offsite at a cloud or at a family member's house or something like that, there's different ways to do it. Make sure that you have that replication in place to protect your library. The third thing, let's see here. The third, I'd probably say go ahead and dive into that life calendar inside of Mylio Photos, and you can kind of take in your life in photos. You can view it by decade, by month, by day, and it's going to show you a representative picture from basically every day you've ever taken a picture.
Wow.
And it's really fun to look through. And then you can even filter it and say, I only want to see pictures of, you can say, find pictures of just you and your mom. And you can see on the calendar all of the best pictures of just you and your mom over the years. From, you know, if you've got pictures scanned in, it could be from when you were a little girl all the way up. So like, it's really emotionally fulfilling to be able to browse and access your pictures and be able to find things when you want them. And that's what
That's the
Mylio
key.
does.
Yeah, that's the key, the finding, because especially like when we have anniversaries or we have different events that we want to highlight on our phone for each other,
Mhm.
good and bad, sad, whatever. I found that by doing albums on my computer helped a lot over the years. And that's why I
Absolutely.
need to definitely finish what I'm started somehow, because it's that access, that quick access that's so important. Yes, we can look at the computer and scroll and spend hours looking, but if you don't have events labeled, or like, it's so overwhelming. It takes too long to find. And that's
Yeah.
why I think I'm so good at, like, a lot of times I am able to find photos of my kids. I remember my kids being in school saying when they were younger, oh, I need a photo for this. And I would say, well, go back to the event on my Apple. But I know the Apple, this is like old school. I just want to kind of finish this, but I still am very interested in this
And the thing
particular
about
app.
Mylio is it's really for everyone, because at any
Right.
stage of your life, you want to document your life, you want photos, and you made a good point. If your kids come to you, for parents out there, and they need photos for a school project, if you're using this lifetime feature, I mean, it's incredible that you can group people together by events and by years. And like, if you wanted to go back and look at our dog Jojo, or for posting for your husband's anniversary, you have all of that in one place. How much
Right.
easier is that than having to scroll each year? Oh my gosh, his birthday's coming up, Christmas is coming up. How do I get together and scrunch for these photos for, you know, a Christmas card or whatever? You have it all right there. I mean, that is so incredible.
Yep. That's exactly what it's about. And you know, you mentioned, you know, you lost your dog recently. I do tag my animals in this. So I have cats, and even family dogs, like, you know, relatives' dogs. I've tagged them in my library.
That's
So you can go back and find those pictures really easily. I mean, you can add a keyword for stuff like that, but I actually have them in the people section of my library. Though there are pictures of my animals. So that's a
So
great way to find them.
yeah, because I had created an album called My Dog's Name. I knew it someday, you know, this was going to happen. He was going to pass. And so I wanted to like be able to go to that. So that's what I did. But then there were photos like Alexander sent me, like I
I
was
get
saying
it
earlier,
all.
that I don't know where she got those from. And I love them and I wanted to use them in my memorabilia. But now they're on my phone as recents and I can't get rid of them because I can't just put them, I can't, in other words, I can't transfer them into the album
Yeah.
and get rid of them under recents.
Right. And that's why Mylio, literally, mom, if you transfer it in, it puts it into the year and the date that you, and you could even, you know, input the date. Like, I want this in the 2012 area or the 2015. That's incredible. What an easy way to use that.
One
Yeah.
silly question, why doesn't, am I not getting it? Why isn't Apple with their technology able to get rid of it under recents and just keep it in albums? Why does it have to be under recent?
Maybe because it's a free thing that comes with your phone.
Like, why can't I just put an album? Why can't I get rid of recent and just have it in albums? I don't
So
understand.
the album is a virtual organization. So you have to have some place where like the picture, here's where the picture lives. Albums in Apple Photos are like a playlist. So like when you go into iTunes and you're making a playlist, you're not actually duplicating that song when you put it into multiple playlists. Albums are very similar. So where it is in your recents, what that's doing, it's reading off of the date that's in the picture. So once that date's corrected, it should show in the right place. I'm just not sure if you have a way to correct the dates in Apple. There might be. I just haven't tried it. But it's
Yeah.
just a matter of correcting that date, and then it will not be in the recents anymore, and then it would still be in your albums. It's just that that date's incorrect.
Oh, okay.
And before
Yeah.
we let you go, I want to ask a few photography questions. We have some questions from the viewers. I want
Sure.
to first say, okay, I don't know how you feel about this, but I'm obsessed with Polaroid cameras. And I think that's insane because we work so hard to bring the technology to, using a great high resolution on
Yeah.
your iPhone. And I have a Polaroid camera that I got for Christmas, but back in the day, that was all they had. And now there's a resurgence of those types of Polaroid cameras. Disposable cameras for film. What do you feel about that? And how have you seen that kind of take over the market as well in the past few years?
It's a lot of fun, and people, digital is a wonderful thing, and the perfection that we can get out of a digital camera down to those little tiny microscopic little bits is fabulous. But there's something to be said for the slight imperfections you find in analog photography. And it's funny you mentioned Polaroids. I actually recently bought all the tools to do Polaroid transfers, so doing the emulsion lifts. But I actually do I can take the pictures with my cell phone or pull in one of my other pictures from my big camera. I can pull it onto my phone, and then it's a transfer little printer that actually prints it from my phone onto the Polaroid sheet.
Oh my gosh, that's so
And
cool.
then I can take that apart, you soak it in water, you lift the emulsion off of the Polaroid, and then you can transfer it to paper. Look up Polaroid emulsion transfers. It's an insanely fun process. I went to a workshop on it just a couple of months ago, and I totally got hooked and went out and bought all the stuff. So there's something definitely heartwarming, and there's a tangible thing.
Artificial. Isn't it less artificial? It's more like
Yeah.
real life to have
scrapbook.
that. Because even my younger daughter, same thing. I remember she went through that whole phase too. I need a Polaroid. And then she's back using a regular camera. Like what? It's so funny. We're stepping away again from the iPhone cameras, and your generation, Alexandra and Olivia's, seems like you guys are back getting away from those. And now the big thing is the Polaroids, the regular old-fashioned cameras where you get the film. I had to give my daughter one of them because she wanted it. So I don't know what is it like everything, like the styles come back, trends come back. What is it? Is it
I
that
think that's a
real
part of
feel?
it. It's just the finding beauty in the imperfection.
Yeah.
So true.
Digital's a little too perfect sometimes.
I know. That's
What
so
do you, I was going to ask you, what do you think? Someone had a question about the iPhone 15. Like, do you think that is a good one? Have you had it? Do you have any thoughts? Are you still more of the mind with, more of the big ones, the big Minoltas? And I have one of those too, which I don't use that much that I
So-
took from Sandra.
My opinion is that the best camera is the one that you have with you.
Okay.
And for most of us, that's going to be our iPhones. I have an iPhone 14 Pro. I'll upgrade at some point in the future when there's a new camera feature probably that really captures my eye. But the modern iPhones or Android cameras, for that matter, are really quite powerful and can take some amazing pictures. That said, I have a Canon mirrorless camera that I absolutely love. That's what I use for my professional work and when I'm going out and creating art. You still can't get quite that quality with an iPhone. You can come close in a lot of situations, but there's just something nice about holding that dedicated camera that's not also your GPS, it's not also your email, it's just a camera.
Yeah.
And I like that.
I love it.
They all have their place and for different purposes. It really depends on what you're wanting to capture and how you're wanting to capture it. But for most of us, if you're, out and you're in the moment, you see something beautiful that captures your eye that's interesting, you have your phone, take the picture.
I was going to ask how you got into photography. Like, how did your journey start? What, as a little girl, as an adult, I find it such an incredible gift that when people are photographers. Like, to me, I never take good pictures. I take okay, but I just think that people that are photographers it's kind of like an art, it's an artistry.
It is a form of art, and it's something you learn. Some people have more of an eye for it than others, but you can certainly train yourself in the art of photography to notice things. You slow down, you notice things around you. I got into it pretty much because my mom was into it. I've always had like an interest in photography, but it wasn't until digital became easily available that I really kind of got into it. My first digital camera, like I'd had film cameras when I was young, but my first digital camera was this little tiny 3 megapixel point and shoot. And it took really pretty horrendous pictures, but it kind of sparked this thing for me. And then a couple of years later, my mom got her first DSLR. And she let me play with it. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, this thing is so fast. It's so cool. I can get all these great pictures. About 6 months later, my husband went out and bought me one. Total surprise, out of the blue. And that's kind of where that all really took root. And then if not long after that, my husband, he's retired military. We were stationed overseas. While we were living overseas, that's where I really dove into photography. And I studied it. I got into local camera groups, read everything, listened to everything that I could, and just kind of absorbed it all. So very much self-taught, and that's where my journey into photography went.
Amazing.
Incredible. I've seen your website and you're so talented. So to even be self-taught is such a gift. That's amazing.
Thank you.
And I was going to say, okay, for Instagram, I really feel like for any photos, lighting and angles are like a person's best friend. I really feel like a lighting or taking a photo from up high versus down low can change a whole photo. What would you say is like the most important thing for capturing that perfect Instagram shot?
Light. Light is your friend. And whether it's light or shadow, or the absence of light. So it's those two things, how they play together are what make an image interesting. Because if you have too much light and you have just this flat light coming at you, there's no dimension. So you add in some shadow, it starts to add dimension. When you're looking at something straight on, that's probably the most boring. And you look down on something, you make it look small. You look up, you make it look grand. It just depends on how you want to portray what you're photographing. I also like to tell people to get down low, kind of that ant's eye view, or if you can get up really, really high and see just seeing something from a different perspective.
That's so true. I'm always telling my friends, can you get down low to get that photo of me? Because I'm only 5 feet. I want to look a little taller.
There you go.
I have a question, a couple questions, two more questions. One I had written down because I was reading a little bit about your background, and it was very interesting in the description about the virtual reunions. And I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about the virtual reunions as well as COVID, because when COVID happened, everything was virtual. So I'd love to hear a little bit about that part of your life, and if that part of the app, or is that separate? Is that the photography we're talking about?
So it's something you can do with the app, but it's something anybody can do with or without Mylio Photos. So the concept of the virtual family reunion is that getting people physically together seems like it's a lot harder than it used to be. People used to be very willing to travel for those family reunions and take the time off work, pay the expenses for travel, and all physically get together in one place. Just doesn't seem to happen all that often anymore. So one way to kind of still get that family connection is using the virtual tools that we have at our disposal. Like we're on Zoom right now. So you invite your family to a virtual Zoom. And if you have a product like Mylio Photos or anywhere that you have your pictures, pull those up on screen and you can go through and browse those memories together. It's also a really good way to collaborate and put together details, especially when you're working on historic photos that maybe you weren't there, maybe those are your parents' photos, your grandparents' photos, and find out who was in those pictures. Tag those pictures, because if you don't know who they are, your kids definitely won't know who they are. And get that information recorded. If there's a little anecdote about it, put that into the description. Just save those little bits of information. And by doing this as a group, everybody can kind of look at this picture and gather that information. Plus, if you're doing it over something like Zoom, you can record the session. That in itself becomes part of your family record. And you can take that video recording, again, put that into your Mylio Photos library and have that available to you. So that's one of those ways to do that virtual family reunion. It's kind of like, during COVID, my family, we would do these group calls because we weren't seeing each other. Everybody was isolated, but we'd all get on a Zoom and be able to at least see each other's faces and laugh. And everybody would kind of talk over each other like we were all in the same room. And it was wonderful. And it's not as good as being in person. Never will be, but it bridges that gap.
That's a really good idea. I didn't even think of that. Using Zoom for that type of recording it and family reunion style to even add that into your memories. Because if you're on the Zoom to look over family photos, that in itself is becoming a family video now.
Exactly.
And I have a question, and this, I don't know if this is related to it. The pictures that I have, like in photo albums from using regular cameras, can those photos be put into an app? How would you take photos and albums that I have downstairs in my basement? How would I put that into the Mylio app?
So you'd want to have those pictures digitized, much like you would with your old videos, your VHS tapes and things like that. And with photos, you can either scan them yourself or you can send them out to a service. The question I usually ask people who are trying to decide whether I should do it myself or pay someone to do it is like, do you have more money? Do you have more time? Because doing it yourself is a really big time commitment. And it also does require some resources because you need to have at least good enough equipment to get archival quality scans. If you send it out to somebody else, obviously you're paying somebody else for their expertise to do it. So it can be a little bit costly, but it's done for you and you don't have to have that stress hanging over you of trying to finish that project. So it really can go either way. And you can also kind of parse that out. So you can say, I'm going to have part of this digitized for me, but I'm going to scan these ones over here myself. If you decide to do it yourself, and I'm working on some of this for my own family right now, doing it myself. I have the Epson Fast Photo 680 scanner. It's a sheet fed scanner, so you can put a stack of like 30 photos in at once, and it will do high quality scans of the front and the back of the picture. So you're also capturing any notes that are on the back, and it'll bring those onto your computer, which you can then put into Mylio. From there, you can go ahead and tag those pictures, add all that pertinent information, change those dates so they show up in the right place in your calendar, and preserve them that way. That works really well for pictures that are all, basically the same size, they're in good condition, they don't have adhesives on the back, things like that. If you have things that are fragile, oddly sized, those are things where you might need a flatbed scanner. And there is some really nice ones out there, but I just use my little it's actually HP multifunction, all-in-one print scan, whatever it is. And I open that up and I just put those more fragile images on that flatbed and I scan them at least a 600 DPI. And that's going to give you a good archival quality scan that you can then keep in your digital system, whether that's Mylio, whether that's Apple Photos, and be able to preserve them.
That's great. No, we need this. And if I'm not mistaken, I think we may have a code that our listeners can use.
Yeah, if you're interested in checking out Mylio photos, you're going to go to mylio.com. That's MYLIO.com. And at checkout, you can enter GenPod, GENPOD. And that'll save you 15%.
Oh, 15% off as well?
Yep.
Look at that with our code 15% off. Oh my gosh. Angela, thank you so much for talking with us today. I am so excited to look at this app. It's, I just love taking photos and I love the memories photos create. So this is such a great way for everyone, even you, mom, me, anyone to dialogue those photos. So thank you so much.
I might be calling you, Angela, sooner than later. I think I also have to do this thing on the Mac. I mean, I'm going to try, but I might be calling you. My husband, he listens to our podcast. So I'm definitely maybe it'll be a little gift for Christmas or something.
Awesome.